I would say China will become the largest Christian nation very soon. And that very soon can be 1 decade, can be 3 decades. It depends on how much suppression they will experience under the current regime. But the trend is clear. China will become the country with the largest Christian population.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Narrative Podcast. Mike Andrews and Aaron Baer with you today. And boy, we've got a good interview coming up.
Oh man, that was so much fun, man. Like, again, this is one. I get an email from you guys with a guest booked, and I don't know the name. I'm like, oh gosh, what's Mike getting us into now?
That's what I go for. That's
awesome.
my whole job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're going to talk with Dr. Fenggang Yang about his.
Hey, you nailed it that time. You did it better than on the front end there. That's good.
True. Well, I had some practice.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk to him about Christianity in East Asia, the global East, China. And it's so fascinating. I had no idea how much of a Western bubble we're actually in when it comes to religion in that part of the world, but he is eye-opening and accessible.
And let me just give you the pitch here. Listen, because I'm typically, when people start going at, like, of all the places I want to travel, China's probably lowest on my list. Japan's not. I'm not like a guy I want to get over to Japan, but just understanding how the Holy Spirit is moving across the globe, reaching people there, understanding the challenges they face. Like it was just a really interesting conversation, and again, great for you for booking him and for him for making his time.
Yes, and I do want to just say up front, it's a little longer interview than we normally do, so we're going to keep we're going to keep news just a tad short today.
We'll try.
Stick it out. It is worth it. I know I'm kind of the type that on a podcast you get past 30 minutes and I'm probably
right. Stick
it out. It is worth it.
It's so good.
It's good stuff. But a couple of things we did want to cover today for our audience, some exciting news that we didn't have last week when we recorded, is that Tony Dungy, Coach Tony Dungy, is coming to Ohio.
Hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, and it's going to be such a fun event at Grove City NAS.
Yeah, the NAS out there with Pastor Dale Benson.
Going to be March 24th at 7 p.m. It is a free event.
Yep.
We'd love for you to RSVP if you're going to be coming, ccv.org/Dungy. But he cares so much about the fatherhood stuff that we're working on right now. He's got an organization that he works with called All Pro Dad. He's coming to Ohio as part of that, and they just said, hey, we'd love to do an event with you guys, and how do we turn that down?
Yeah, no, just a great opportunity. All of this just flowed out of that Hope in a Future report we released about a year ago this time, out of the Family Structure Index that we're going to be doing a new release here coming up. And again, how do we revitalize marriage, revitalize family, and just hearing him speak is such a incredible opportunity, and it's going to be a great night. And so hopefully you can make it. And that's just 3 weeks before the Columbus Gala with Scott Jennings. So it's really going to be I know it's a chaotic season, as it always is around CC.
Is there ever not one?
Right, but it's going to be a fun one with Coach Dungy and then Scott Jennings, and I know we've got seats left for both of those.
And we just had another event yesterday, our Prayer at the Statehouse, which we hold 4 times a year. And I think we talked last time on the podcast after we had one, like, if you haven't been to that, you need to get to one.
Yeah.
I've got to say, if you weren't at yesterday's, you missed out.
It was unreal. Well, it was the first time we had OSA. We had Ohio Christian Education Network schools there. We had 6 RSVP and 8 showed up, and it was our largest Prayer at the Statehouse we've ever had.
The place was packed.
Yeah, standing room only. I mean, I genuinely was concerned for a minute. I saw the state troopers kind of looking around, being like, are we in fire code
I was
here?
by the capacity sign. It said 500. I saw it. So
good,
we were
good.
under
we're in
that.
good shape. That's good.
But it's a big space. The atrium is a big space. The fact that we filled it, and not only that we filled it with people, but we filled it with prayer and worship. Yeah. And it's something else when the sound of worship reverberates on the walls in there and echoes through both chambers of the Ohio Statehouse. It's unreal.
Well, there's nothing like, I came in around, it always starts around at 10, and I came in about 10:15. And when you walk in through security, and it's a massive marble building, and so the singing just reverberates across the entire building, and so as soon as you walk in, you hear that sound of the praises of the saints, and it's, again, one of my favorite things is just watching the lobbyists and the lawmakers and the various people coming through kind of stop and look, see what's going on. It's a really powerful experience.
You not only got to make some remarks at the event, but you also got to talk with an NPR reporter who was there to observe and take photos, and then came over to the building and talked to you afterward.
Yeah, again, that's one of those things too. It's a part of our public witness. We tell reporters, we tell people, hey, come see. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe in. We want to pray for you. We want to display what Christianity really believes here.
And one thing that I found interesting in her observing your comments and then talking to you, like, obviously made sense to talk about pro-life, talk about family stuff.
Yeah.
But then property tax was on the docket as well.
Yeah.
Something that you mentioned.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about CCV is I think for a lot of groups in our space, we very much tend to just say we're a social conservative organization, right? So it's pro-life, it's pro-marriage, pro-family, pro-religious liberty. That's kind of where, parental rights, education, generally like those, like I said, social issues. From the get-go at CCV, when I came in, I felt the Lord's leading to say, listen, everything on the earth is Lord. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And God's word has wisdom for everything we do, not just for how we raise our families or whether abortion is good or bad, but for all of life. And I actually think a lot of the struggles we face in America today has been because we've pulled our Christian ethic out of how we approach things like taxes, regulation, even things like entitlement programs. And so I brought up property taxes during my few remarks there during a worship service because it is, by all means, Christians should care about, hey, have our property taxes gotten so high that there are people in Ohio today who have, especially when I think about the elderly, you'll hear these stories, people who have, paid their taxes, played by the rules, paid off their house, and then their property taxes continue to go up and up and up that they can't even afford to stay in the home that they've paid off anymore because our taxes are so high. That's a justice issue that Christians, a fairness issue that Christians should be concerned about. And our Christian faith should inform that. Now, again, is it as black and white as should we kill unborn children? No, I agree. There could be prudential disagreements about these things. But this is one more place you see in the Christian walk where we've created a sacred and secular divide that Jesus wouldn't recognize, right? He would see all of these things as issues that his Holy Spirit, his holy word could speak wisdom into. And that's just one of those things, especially in a room full of kids. We probably 30% of the crowd there were students, challenging them to not isolate how their Christian faith influences their votes in these maybe very clear and important social issues, but also how they think about the economy, also how they think about work, also how they think about foreign policy. God's word is a light unto all of that. And we do a grave disservice, not just to ourselves, but to the nation when we pull back our light from these important issues as well.
And at the very least, I would think it's okay to have the conversation about if we're going to pass property taxes, that's one thing if we think it's a valid means of funding government programs that are necessary. But for state, local, federal agencies to just treat it as a piggy bank for their projects is not wise.
Yeah, exactly. And to, again, bring in that perspective of, hey, this is individuals' hard-earned money. And what's the actual impact of having this by taking these things away from them, right? That our founders understood, the ability to restrict or remove life, liberty, and property is a massive power, and it has to be wielded wisely. And what better way of wielding that power than having the Holy Spirit help inform those things, or having Holy Spirit-filled people who are mindful of that Holy Spirit being a part of that debate.
Yeah, it was, again, a great day, lots of great content. And speaking of great content, we got to get to our interview now so that we have plenty of time for our listeners to enjoy it. It might even take a couple commutes to get through this one. Yeah. But again, I promise it's worth it. Our interview with Dr. Fenggang Yang is coming up next.
If you've got something to say, we want to help you say it. I'm Vince Tornero. Since 2018, Westler Media has helped churches, organizations, and events amplify their message through podcast, video, and social media. We also happen to produce the narrative too. Let's talk. WesslerMedia.com, WESSLER Media.com.
You're invited to join Center for Christian Virtue for our 2026 Columbus Celebration Gala on Saturday, April 11th. It's going to be a great night where you can join us to celebrate what God is doing through CCV. We're excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Scott Jennings, who is CNN's senior conservative voice and one of the sharpest commentators in the national spotlight. He's known for his clarity, conviction, and humor. And Scott brings decades of experience at the crossroads of politics and media, including service in the George W. Bush White House and key roles in multiple presidential and Senate campaigns. It is going to be an elegant evening where you'll enjoy an incredible dinner followed by visionary keynotes exploring the path forward for the future of Ohio and America. Do not miss it. Sponsor a table today. Visit ccv.org/gala for more information. That's ccv.org/gala. We are back on The Narrative. Mike Andrews and Aaron Bear. We're joined now by Fenggang Yang, who is a professor of sociology and the founding director of the Center on Religion and the Global East at Purdue University. His research focuses on the sociology of religion, religious change in China, and immigrant religion in the United States. He has lectured, presented, and given interviews at major universities, professional associations, and media outlets in the U.S., Asia, and Europe. And now adding to his esteemed resume, a guest on The Narrative. Dr. Yang, we're so grateful for this time that you've given us today and thankful for your work. So great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Could we just start out? Can you give us a very broad overview of what the current state of the growth of Christianity is in the global East?
Well, in the global East include East Asian societies and also East Asian diasporas, those like Chinese Americans, Korean Americans. So the global East is broader than East Asia. Christianity in East Asia varies very significantly. In South Korea, Protestant and Catholics combined are more than 30% of the population. But in Japan, there's only maybe 1 to 2 or at most 3% of the population that are Christian. And in between the two extremes are the Chinese societies. As a plural, include mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and perhaps even Singapore, as the majority are ethnic Chinese there. And the percentage of Christians in the Chinese society is very much very different. Maybe in Taiwan is about 6-7%, but in Hong Kong is about 20%, while 15 to 20%. Among the Chinese in Singapore, it's 20% or more. The question is, how many are there in China, or what's the percentage? And that has been being debated, contested by different organizations and researchers. I'm thinking that Christians in China may be around 5 to 7% of the population. And actually that can translate into big numbers because of the total population in China is about 1.4 billion. And my latest estimate of Christians in mainland China is really about 100 million.
I think the thing you just said there that was most surprising to me, and I want to spend a lot of time on China here, but was Japan. Because I think in America, we very much, or again, just as another American, we very much view Japan as a close ally, a close friend, a country that we probably have some more similarities in there. Why is the Christian population in Japan so small, especially even relative to the surrounding region? And what are the churches? What's the experience of Christians in Japan today?
That's an important question, and also a question lacks good answers so far. There's a lack of research, academic research. In the last few years, we did a project trying to trace the history of Christian development in these multiple East Asian societies, including Japan. We looked at different factors, contextual factors, and agencies. What's interesting is that in the 19th century, Christianity was very much new to all of these East Asian countries, East Asian societies. And also all these East Asian societies resisted the spread of Christianity in those places. What's interesting is in the 20th century, we began to see the very different developments in different societies. And some of this have to do with the local politics, nationalism, traditional culture, and also the position in relationship with Western countries that are with a majority Christian. So especially the contrast between South Korea or Korea and Japan is so clear because Korea was part of the Japanese colonialism, Japanese expansion. Japan annexed Korea in the early 20th century. As a result, the Koreans' resistance to colonialism was resistant to the Japanese, and Christianity became an ally for their national independence. In the opposite is Japan. When Japan tried to militarize, to become a new imperial power, and they really had very tight control over Christian institutions to mobilize all resources for the build-up of imperialism, and including sending Christian missionaries to Japan, to China, to Manchuria, northeast of China. They really used Christianity as part of the imperial expansion. Within Japan, Japan proper, then Christianity became very much like a enemy, especially during World War II, when the U.S. And Japan are in the two camps. So after World War II, even though there was a few years where Japan was under occupation of the alliance, and many missionaries sent to Japan, but the Japanese people rejected Christianity as a Western imperialism. So it's very different dynamics of the national relationship that may have a lot to do with the divergent development since World War II. I know that's oversimplification. There are a lot of factors. What did the missionaries from the West actually did during the wartime or during the years toward the wartime? Those who were in Korea and those who were in Japan really did different things.
Yeah.
In Korea, Korean Christians became a major resistance force toward the Japanese colonialism, so that win the heart of Korean people. After World War II, they established the Republic of Korea, and the government is supportive of Christianity. And so in the 1950s and 60s, 70s, Christianity grew very quickly, rapidly in Korea. But in Japan, right after World War II, there was some growth, 1950s, some growth, then it stopped.
Yeah. So Dr. Yang, what would be the dominant worldview faith in Japan right now? And I guess second to that too, it just is striking me like Christianity has such a focus on evangelism. and on sharing your faith with somebody else, and the need to see it spread. Is that culture looked down on in Japan? Is that idea of sharing your sort of, or maybe broader global East? How is that received or perceived in the region?
In terms of culture tradition, Buddhism is a common major religion in these East Asian countries. In addition to that, and also Confucianism was also a common mainstream tradition, cultural, ethical, or spiritual tradition. Then in Japan, the really dominant cultural tradition is Shintoism. And the imperial Japan really established Shintoism as a kind of state religion. But
what's the core of that? What's the core of Shintoism?
Shintoism, there are many gods in it, but the Japanese emperor is part of the pantheon. So the emperor is a god in that system. And that was a major contention when Christian missionaries got in Japan. Can you worship the emperor as a god? And many Christians says no, but to be Japanese, you have to. It's a national ritual. You have to be part of it. Otherwise, you would be no longer considered Japanese. So this Shintoism and also the Japanese elite, political cultural elites, defined Shintoism as not a religion. It's a national tradition. And by doing that, basically saying no matter what religion you belong to, you have to be part of Shintoism. That really made it very hard for Christian evangelism. And also religion, the term, became such a negative thing. If you belong to a religion, it implies in Japanese culture as a very sectarian. You are evangelizing, it's trying to convert other people, is against the mainstream norm. So that has made it very difficult for missionaries in Japan.
That's fascinating. I'm just struck by how much we are unaware of some of these unique, I guess, circumstances or cultures in Eastern traditions. Are there some other things that we in the West maybe tend to overlook or frankly just get wrong about religion in Eastern countries like Japan or China?
Yeah, there are many, really.
Well, okay, so let me narrow it down. What are some of the maybe top one or two that you would point out?
Yeah, the understanding that first to begin with, really to understand the word religion for East Asians is a new thing imported from the West, and as a imported concept, it is hard to make people understand as what it understood in the West. That's to begin with. So if you ask people, most East Asians would say they don't have a religious identity. They don't identify with any particular religion because religion sounds so foreign, so Western. But if you ask them, what do you believe? Do you believe any God? Do you practice anything, participate in any ritual? Then most East Asians are religious by believing and by practicing, but not by belonging to a particular religion, because belonging to a particular religion is often considered sectarian.
So is that different than, say, again, my understanding of individuals in Middle Eastern countries are, if I'm from Iraq or Oman, I'm a Muslim, right? That's like, it's just, but they very much identify with Islam. Is there a distinction between, the way, faith is understood in a Middle Eastern country compared to a Far East country?
Yes, it is very different. So there's no general Orientalism. In East Asia, there have been multiple religious systems or religions coexisted for thousands of years. Right? So for more than 1,000 years, Buddhism, Taoism, and Shinto, and in Korea is shamanism. There are also some small sects, sectarian groups have existed. And of course, there are also Confucianism. Whether Confucianism is a religion or not depends on the definition, who defines it. But most East Asians do not consider Confucianism as a religion. It's a system, it's a tradition. So because they have lived among multiple religions or religious systems, it's very hard to identify with any particular one. So this is very different from the Middle East, where the vast majority belong to Islam. So this coexistence, actually think about this, Confucianism, Buddhism, and the Taoism all have had a history of over 2,000 years. Right? So it's a long tradition. It's really in the culture, in the soil. And so many people are naturally have learned something of Confucianism, something of Taoism, something of Buddhism. For Koreans, something of shamanism. For Japanese, something of Shintoism. For the Japanese, on major holidays, you're supposed to go to a Shinto shrine, Shinto site. That's how you celebrate the traditional festivals. Many people say, oh, that's not religion. They don't go there for religion, but they go there for cultural tradition, traditional practice. But if you don't go, that's not acceptable. And when you go, those shrines house the spirits or gods, right? So it is religion in that sense. But many people simply say, it's different from the organized religion like Christianity or Islam. That's the overall situation in East Asia.
So I can hear in that response, Doctor, that Christianity is really going to go against the grain in that kind of environment when we're making the core claim that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and you're speaking this message to people who have grown up in this very multi-religion identity where they've picked parts of things. So how does Christianity start to take root, or how does it fit in to that historical lineage that they have where they've grown up with so many religions around?
Yeah, the initial introduction of Christianity to East Asia really had a very, very difficult time, right? So there were great persecutions for the few converts. In Japan, the movie Silence, or the novel, describes how Catholics were persecuted very severely. And eventually some Catholics had to hide their identity. So this became known heathen Catholics or heathen Christians. They have to hide their Christian beliefs under Shinto or Buddhist cover. And so it was very difficult. And in China also banned Christianity. They came in, spread, and then banned not until 1840, after the Opium War, that knocked down the gate of China by Britain. Then foreigners, including missionaries, were allowed to exist, to come into China. So it was totally banned for a long time. 1840 and 1860 and more opening up, especially along the coast, the ports, allowed business business people, missionaries to stay in China. That's how it started. Very difficult beginning. And I would say, the one big one in China is 1900. There was the Boxer uprising. Really, the locals opposed all foreign things, including Christianity. So some missionaries, some local converts were killed during the Boxer uprising in 1900, around 1900. But it's around that time Christianity began to take roots in the Chinese society. And it's about the same time that happened in Korea and in Japan also. It's really around 1900 things began to change. There are some rooting, some growing around that time. It's totally two different systems. When the two systems come together, of course there will be fights and difficulties, but over time things began to ease out.
Does Catholicism or Protestantism, does one tend to thrive more than the other in these cultures, or are people drawn to one more than the other in either Japan or any of these East Asian countries, or is it all kind of It's all Christianity, and it's all kind of running into the same challenge?
Not the same. Catholicism came to East Asia 200 years before Protestant missionaries began their work, right? More than 200 years. So Catholics had an early start, so they had a larger number to begin with. And the Protestant missionary, the first one, arrived in China in 1807. So it's only about 200 years, a little bit more than 200 years in China, and a little later in Korea. In Japan, because it's on the ocean, so there may be earlier arrival, but Japan closed the door, did not allow for foreigners, so it's very similar. Anyway, by the time of 1900, let's start with there are many times more Catholics than Protestants, right? So after 100 years of Protestant missions in China, some converted, but the majority of Chinese believers were Catholic than Protestant. Even up to 1949, when the Communist Party established the People's Republic of China in China, there were 3-1, 3 Catholics to 1 Protestant. So Catholic more than Protestant. Similar situation in there may be even more Catholics in proportion in Japan than Protestant. But then the 20th century saw the reversal. Nowadays, there are many more Protestant Christians in China and in Korea than Catholics. So in China today, the government says we have 38 million Protestants and 6 million Catholics. I see the really totally reversal. And in Korea, it's about 2-1, 2 Protestants to 1 Catholic. Japan again have more Catholics and also have more Orthodox churches in Japan. But Protestants, when we looked at it more deeply, it looked like more of the sectarian Protestant or Protestant sects, rather quite popular in compare with mainstream, mainline versus or evangelical churches.
Would there be do you think there's any connection there just in terms about sort of the expression of, evangelical Protestant traditions compared to Catholic traditions where, Catholic traditions is more, the Catholic faith is more expressed through traditions and through rituals and things like that? And is there a draw for East Asians towards Protestantism or evangelical denominations, because there's less of that ritual, and is there anything like that in terms of, hey, this expression of Christianity is a little bit more of a attractive pull or draw because of one emphasis or over the other?
Yeah, certainly the different ways of doing religion between Catholics and Protestants may make some difference. Catholicism emphasized more by tradition, by community, but also by hierarchy, right? So what the Vatican decides, through the hierarchy, you get down to the grassroots level. And that's very different from Protestants, right? There's no one unified organization of Protestantism, but different Protestant denominations, especially emphasizing congregationalism. And this congregationalism, things decided by the congregation at the congregational level, but also doing religion congregationally. That's so new to East Asians, because traditional religions, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, are not congregational religions. They are temple-based religions. You don't belong to a temple. You visit multiple temples, right? But if you belong to a Christian church, you get to know each other. You become one body, right? One body. That's the idea. One body of the congregation. You have mutual aid, support to each other. This way of being religious is a new thing. The Protestant really makes this more clear, in contrast to the Catholic hierarchy, things coming down from the Vatican, from the cardinal, from the bishop, from the priest. So that difference, I think, we need to understand the Christian spread in East Asia, particularly in Korea and China or Chinese societies, are part of modernization. When the Chinese and Koreans want to become modernized, and that also means individual liberation. Right? You are liberated from the traditional collectives, the family, the clan, the state, and Christianity gives you this faith, this leverage for you to claim everyone as independent, is free, and is equal in front of God. This notion really is very important to attract converts, right? But at the same time, the congregational life is so refreshing. You can live a life in a congregation that's not the clan. You have all the obligations, not with the state, the government, but it's a voluntary association, and by faith you become brothers and sisters in Christ. That's
Amen.
refreshing. That becomes attractive in the process of modernization of China and Korea. But Japan modernized earlier. They took earlier steps, modernized the state. Then this is, Shinto can be useful for nation building. So once Shinto became the official religion or the official rites, it becomes a block, makes it more difficult for Christians to penetrate.
I do want to spend some time just talking about China because
I was going to say, we're a half hour in. We booked you to talk about China, and I've been just taking us down all these. My apologies, because that's where we wanted to go.
But that regional context is so helpful. But as we do focus in on China here for the last little bit of our interview, you mentioned the numbers: 1.4 billion people, about 5 to 7% are Christians there, and I know from checking in on some of your work and some of your research, you've talked about a triple market theory in China. For our listeners who aren't going to be familiar with that concept, can you explain that a little bit and how it fits into the Christian movement in China?
Okay. Yes. There is some social scientists, economists, sociologists try to understand the dynamics of religious change, they use the market metaphor, right? Religious supply and religious demand. When new organizations or new denominations are formed, they are the suppliers of religion or religious goods, theology and services. And then people would have the religious demand, what kind of things they want. Right? So when the supply and demand meet, that's a religious market. And that's the first of all. And there have been very great scholars, great works on the U.S. American religion as the religious economy evolved. But the U.S. Religious economy, the supply and demand is very much in a free market. Right? The religious freedom allows any few people come together and says, we want to start a new church, and you can start. Then if you have a good theology, good worship service, good organization, you can grow quickly. That's what happened in the second awakening and the third awakening. But in China, I said the Chinese religious economy is a closed economy, is not free, is state-controlled. As a result, the supply and the demand cannot meet only by themselves, right? The state play a bigger role. The state says, oh, we have some religions allowed, others are not allowed. So there are legal versus illegal. The legally allowed religious groups are operating in the open, what I call red market, because you need to be obedient to the Communist Party. That's a red color, right? So red market religion, there are 5 religions allowed: Protestantism, Catholicism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Islam. These are the 5 officially allowed religions if you join one of the state-sanctioned religious organizations.
So Judaism is not allowed? Is that correct?
Judaism is not accepted as one of the religions. So only 5 religions are allowed, right? And that 5 religions have to belong to the Communist Party instructed organization. So there's a Buddhist association, there's an Islamic association, there's a Protestant association, there's a Catholic association, there's a Taoist association. Only if you belong to one of the 5 associations, then you can do religion. You can do the rituals, you have religious venues, temples, churches, mosques, and there are clergy. So these are in the red market. Then all the others, maybe include Judaism, but also those Christians or Buddhists or Muslims who don't join the association, if they still operate, is in the black market, is underground. If you are in the black market, that's considered illegal. The police can get you if they want to. So it's banned. Only that because people need religion or want religion, even though those are banned, they still exist. Actually, they have grown. So the black market of religion existed for a long time and expanding. Actually, China officially banned about 20 religious groups, religions, officially listed. Says this we do not allow. But those groups, many of them have grown, even though they are banned. So the black market is big. But between the red market, legally allowed, and the black market, there's a big one I call gray market, because it's really hard to define them as legal or illegal. They are both legal and illegal, depending on who sees it, who oversees it. For example, to be a Christian in the red market, you should join a called Three Self Church. The Three Self Patriotic Movement Committee is the Protestant Association. if you go to that church, official church, big building, yeah, you are in the red market. But some Christians say, I feel I cannot get the message I need, the theology, the teaching, and also the community. So they want to do separately. But if they do that separately, and in one of the officially banned groups, they are in the black market. They are Christian, but in the black market, because the police can come in and dismiss or arrest people. But then, how about if I don't join the black market group? I just stay home and meet with my family members, maybe a few friends. These are called house churches, right? The house churches, is that legal? Not really. Is that illegal? Not really. So they are in the gray. So this is the gray market. The gray market is big. Many people are in the house churches. Only that in the last few years in China, especially since 2018, the government has new regulations trying to say that's not gray, it's black. If you do that, it's illegal. So they have arrested many house church leaders in recent years. But still, there are so many. It's impossible to arrest all of those house church leaders.
So, real quickly in that, just technical questions here. Does the Vatican recognize the red market Catholic Church? Like, how does the Vatican acknowledge what's going on in China right now?
The Catholic really, that is so complicated.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I know I might just
like it's
open
a simple question.
Pandora's box there, but because I got a lot of communist questions here, communism questions as well. But high level, how does the Vatican and Rome relate to?
Okay, very quickly. Catholicism, the Vatican was very strong anti-communist in the 1950s, 1940s, 1950s. That really alienated with the Chinese Communist Party and the new country. So in the 1950s, China tried very hard to establish the Catholic Patriotic Association. That's in the red market. And the Vatican says, no, if you belong to it, you are automatically excommunicated. And so they are considered basically apostates, right? So, but after several decades, that didn't really help. There were underground Catholics, the underground priests, underground bishops. They were loyal to the Vatican, but the Chinese government really suppressed them very severely. The red bishops, red priests above ground, they could operate most of the time. Right? During Cultural Revolution, religion was banned in China in the 1960s, 1970s. But since 1979, Catholic churches were all reopened. There are people there. So Pope John Paul II, right, very strongly supported the underground Catholic Church and critical of the red market Catholics. But then the popes change. The last pope, Pope Francis, says, no, let's do something different. So the Vatican signed an agreement with the Chinese Communist Party in 2018, I think, for the first time. But nobody knows what the agreement is. But it must be about appointing bishops. The Pope wants the divided Catholic Church to be united, right? Don't divide that as underground versus above ground. You should come together. And it's a good attempt. As a result, they brought the underground Catholics above. Says, okay, now you are all above, all belong to the Patriotic Association. It's fine. But appointing bishops, that's a major controversial point. And the Vatican has to accept some of the red bishops as legitimate bishops in the Catholic system. But China denied many of the underground bishops as acceptable bishops. So the agreement with the Vatican since 2018, honestly, I think has hurt Catholics badly. But it worked for the benefit of the Chinese Communist government.
Generally, in the broader communist culture in China right now, for a Christian who's trying to live faithfully in China, can they evangelize? Can they raise their kids in the faith? What's that experience like? And can they, question communist worldview, communist dogma? How's that lived experience of Christianity in China right now?
Each of these questions need some explanation. First of all, in China, everyone must go through the state school system, right, from kindergarten to graduate school, and atheism is the official teaching. So everyone has to learn atheism.
And wrapped up in atheism, is Darwinism in there, and how do they teach creation, for example, or
that would be considered myth or fiction, and science is absolute, so is a scientism. Of course, evolution is the big thing. So schools all teach evolution as the truth, the one truth. Science as the truth. Religion is considered a false consciousness in Marxist word. As a false consciousness, you look at the world upside down. So the science gave you the truth, and that's atheism is science. They call scientific atheism. Everyone learned by default. You have to learn this. You have to memorize this and answer correctly in the exams in order to move to the next level. So everyone is doing that. And then the Communist Party, if you want to have public service, if you want to become work for the government as a part of the government, then you need to join the party. Join the Communist Party. And to join the Communist Party, you have to declare to be atheist because it's required. The Marxist ideology include atheism. As a result, if you are an open Christian or Buddhist or Taoist or whatever, what religion, you basically lose any opportunity in the public service. It's not allowed. Right? It's blocked. You cannot enter. Children under age 18, in principle or in the communist document, is not allowed to become religious. So basically, the state banned baptism to anyone under age 18. So the government admitted number of 38 million Protestant Christians, only adults, for one. Second, there are supposedly no Communist Party members or Communist Youth League. There's a second organization is called the Communist Youth League for people age 14 to 25. And you join the Communist Youth League. If you are good, considered good, then you may get a chance to join the Communist Party. Once you become a party member, there are greater opportunities to become government officials, get promotions, get better jobs. Right? So there's a clear obstacle for any religious believer in this system that dominated by atheist ideology.
So I know that the answer to this question is ultimately the Holy Spirit, but with all these man-made barriers that are being put up in China, is there a sociological explanation for why we're seeing 100 million people identify as Christians?
Yeah, there are besides the Holy Spirit, there are social processes because the Chinese strive for modernization, right? That's a big thing. Since I grew up, we have known which want to be modernized. To be modernized, then you need to follow some modern things. including to be independent person with personal liberty, freedom, and equality of everyone. There are something, right? At the individual level, somehow Christianity speaks to it, right? If you want that independence, then here is faith as the base for that, right? So if when people hear about the Christian message, some of them got really attracted to it without really being evangelized by a person. That's what was interesting. Some of them by radio in the early years, radio from Hong Kong, radio from the Philippines, and some people listening to the radio and become Christian. Right? That's so hard to believe that, but that actually happened. Then, since 1979, after religion is allowed to emerge above ground, so as long as you say to be a Christian is not totally illegal, and there are Christian churches open, then schools began to teach about religion as part of history, as part of culture. Some people simply say, oh, I want to learn about Western culture, European, American culture. You know, why do they celebrate Christmas? Right? They see the Christmas tree, they sing Jingle Bell, and then they learn, oh, there's some deeper message behind it. So they learn and they want to be part of it, right? So as long as the media not clean out all of those Christian-related things, people learn. And so the more they learn, they find, oh, this is what I need, what I want. And then they began to have the evangelists, the missionaries and the evangelists. They develop Bible study groups, establish fellowships, and eventually establishing churches. So this is really gradual. And once they taste the life of a fellowship, they find, wow, this is so good. At the same time, when Chinese society is changing dramatically, you know, we know China has become urbanized quickly. Now there are so many people live in urban areas. This is rising rapidly. Urban life is different from village. In village, everyone knows everyone, everyone watching over everyone. But in the urban setting, you don't even know your next door neighbor in the apartment. And how do you still have a community? Old way communities dissolved. Then the church becomes a very attractive new community. It also provides the kind of moral terminology, moral virtues reaffirmed through the church, through the teaching. So so people just naturally attracted to this. And economic reforms opening up allowed this exist. And, you know, there are so many foreigners in China as teachers, as students, as business people, as NGO workers, and interacting with them. So there's really multiple. But overall, one overarching factor, I would say, is China's modernization. That has rendered the Communist Party control over people's mind and heart difficult to maintain.
That's incredible. I'll say if Jingle Bells got them, wait until they hear about the Easter Bunny. That's really going to blow people's minds. I got one more. I know we got to wrap here unless you got one last one.
I've got one more too, but you go for it.
Okay. So and I know we're running way over here, but this is really fascinating. So friends of ours at the Beckett Fund, for example, talk a lot about how religious liberty in America, religious freedom, is one of the cornerstones to why our American society has thrived. And I think for a lot of Americans, it's kind of hard to wrap their minds around that because it's the air we breathe here. It's the only thing we've ever known, right? You can walk into a Catholic church one day and to a Baptist church and to a non-denom church that's actually a Baptist church the next day. And, it all feels, there's no one looks at you sideways, right? What would a Chinese Christian or anybody, how would they talk about why religious freedoms matter? How would they try to explain to an American the gift of religious freedom and why it's something worth protecting today?
Yes, religious freedom officially separating church and state started in the U.S., and as I said, a standard. But then it becomes an international norm, especially through the United Nations, when there was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the 1940s or 1950s. That's really written in it. It's part of, religious freedom. It's part of the UN documents. And then to be part of modern world, the country should follow the United Nations standards, right? So officially, the Chinese Constitution also include the religious freedom clause. Only that the Constitution can be shelved, not really taking effect. But then the standard is there. Even many, I would say, Communist Party members said, yeah, I'm atheist, but I cannot, I have to allow religious freedom to be modern, right? To be modern. So even though I have to say China suppressed religions, but that suppression compared with some of the Muslim majority countries is much mild. It's not really, if you believe in this, your head being chopped off, right? Most of the religious believers have no problem operating in their daily life, especially if you are in the private sector. If you not rely your life on the party or the state. And that space has increased since 1979. Many people work in the private sector. So within that space, they can be free. They respect each other's freedom. Actually, the religious freedom has become such a norm in Chinese society that in the past, if any individual convert to Christianity, this person can be banned by the family. So you are no longer part of the family because you no longer do the ancestor worship thing. You do not join the traditional rituals. You are no longer one of us. But nowadays, older people says, "Oh, you have faith. That's good for you. We don't, but it's good for you. Keep it. If you don't do the ancestor worship, fine. But we have learned that Christians treat their parents and the siblings well, honor them. So do that, keep it. So nowadays there's a less suppression by fellow Chinese, and the state want to project themselves as part of the modern world. So maintain minimum level of religious freedom is there. So overall, that's the situation. So within one family, there are people belong to different religions. That's very common in China today.
Well, as I close with our last question here, I'm going to quote Yogi Berra that I know it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. But if the trends continue as they have been in China, what does this look like for the future of Christianity in the country and the country overall?
Yeah, I have just finished a book called "The Rise of Christianity in China." In that, in the last chapter, I did put out some projection based on what we have learned of the development in the last few decades, and with about 100 million Christians this year around this time, given the trajectory of growth in the last several decades, I would say China will become the largest Christian nation very soon. And that very soon can be 1 decade, can be 3 decades. It depends on how much suppression they will experience under the current regime. But the trend is clear. China will become the largest country with the largest Christian population very soon, 1 to 3 decades.
Well, what you just said just sparked probably 3 more questions that I'm going to save because we'll love to have you back sometime because this has been just an incredible conversation, Professor. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time.
Yep. It's great to have you today as a guest on The Narrative. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to having you back sometime.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Narrative, presented by CCV and produced by Wessler Media. If you found today's episode insightful, leave us a review or rating and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We're your hosts, Mike Andrews, Aaron Baer, and David Mahan, and we'll see you next time on The Narrative.